Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Opinion Machine, the show where we talk about all things gaming. My name is Killjoy, and today we're going to talk about some Donkey Kong Country music, but specifically tracks that I feel always get a bit overshadowed. If you know your Donkey Kong Country, you know that this is one of my favourite soundtracks. You know this is one of the best soundtracks ever made, but that's probably because of things like DK Island Swing, or Simian Fugue, whichever one it is, and Aquatic Ambience. They're like the big ones from this game that always get sort of, talked about and listened to and talked about how great they are. Aquatic Ambience especially could quite easily be one of the best tracks ever made, if not the best track ever made. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to listen to some of the other music and talk about some of the other music that I think gets overshadowed. It's not because these tracks are bad, it's just that some of the ones people really talk about are like top tier. Gangplank Galleon's another one, absolutely fantastic track. Awesome remixes, stuff like that. But let's start with Life in the Mines. Life in the Mines to me is just a really beautiful piece. Like, it's got a lot of sound effects to start with, and it has a very simple call and response melody line and these nice strings, and then a drum beat comes in. But let's listen. So there you go, you've got the sort of the mine sounds like that. You got two sets of string sounds crossing. Go, yeah. What's really interesting is the mine sort of sounds in the background that are meant to be like mining. Is almost that random chaoticness of that. They never stop. There's always something going on. It keeps building. I assume this is meant to be a flute or panpipes, but that do 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 cool response, man, it is so cool. Do do do. Very simple melody. Do do. You got the strings in the background. Do. They swell upwards. And then what we get here is this lovely coming in the background. So what you tend to find with this track is you have this really nice like melody, quite very positive sounding melody, I would say, very sort of joyful, bit melancholy, but more positive in that and then you suddenly get this sort of take where it becomes like, ooh, it's a bit of danger. Something's going on here. If you just listen to that bit again, where are we at? There. Nice use of like an echo delay sound as well. Do do. Oh, just the chords in this, so nice. You get it twice, and then it ends differently. Then we get that. And it sort of starts to fade out, so you just hear that. And then you can hear a bass or a sort of instrument, probably a synth, going dunk 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 dunk, which starts to build to the next part, which is where the drums come in. Just there's an element there. And they get the keys. I say keys, I meant strings. You get that. There's a really nice like chord change there. So go that end string section goes like that. So you get a and then back in with the melody again, but with the drums pushing the track along at the behind now. And that bass sort of do 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 do. And like for a mine shaft kind of level, like it does work really well. But I absolutely love this track. I think it sets an emotion with very little, you know. And then it sort of starts to fade out before it repeats. But what I love about it is the fact that you get this atmosphere. This track creates an atmosphere so well. If we just go back to the beginning, we just listen to it, so just that boom, 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 and it's like a held note that's just like boom underneath, and then you get those string bits going, and it's just building and building and building. Now you can hear where the track changes when it kicks in with the melody, but if you think about it, it's just atmosphere building, right? Some mine sort of echoes and delays, like you're in a mine shaft. Trying to set a scene for like a vastness. And then it changes to, and you get the melody. And the big thing here is that, so you set that scene at the beginning of the track, which is like, there's a vastness here, it's this big open space, big like mine shaft. And then the melody is meant to like echo and call and response. And it sort of blows up the track. It's like, oh yeah, this is the atmospheric part. This is, hey, I'm down in a mine, you know. But it's not all bad. That's kind of what's cool about the melody. It's not a bad melody. It's not saying there's danger per se. That comes in later. And because there's a lack of percussion, it's like, oh, I'm just exploring. I'm seeing this vast mine. And then that sets the tone. Things aren't. There's a bit of challenge, a bit of something to overcome, basically. It's the vibe that I get from it, and then that builds. And when you hit the drums come in, now you're rolling, right? And now we've got the string parts and the drums, and it elevates the track perfectly. It's like, yeah, this is a vast mine, but we've got this. We can overcome that challenge. Even though that little bit of like uncertainty is still there in the track. And that's what the drums do so well. Just adding that in is that now you can do this kind of attitude. And that melody, which has that call and response, is just beautiful. I think Life in the Mines is one of my favourites. It's very subtle. It's not in your face like some of the other tracks, especially the next track we're about to play, which is completely different. I just love this idea. You know, when you're making a lot of video game music, usually you kind of try to fit it to the level, and I think this one works wonderful. There are other mine levels that have this other piece of music that's like more like background atmosphere, but Trek, and I think Tanked Up Trouble, and Winky's Walkway, I think, is the first time you hear this. Like those levels, when you actually stop and look at how the levels are designed. Platform Perils, I think, also uses this. It's just a lot of these levels are quite challenging, and it works so well to be like, no, you can overcome it, kind of thing. I love it. But let's move on. Let's move on to the next one, which is Fear Factory. Now, Fear Factory, I will say, is probably very well liked. I just think, again, it's one of those ones where I listen to it and I'm like, this is an incredible piece of music that is just insane. The fact this is on a SNES, but let's just hit it. Already so much going on. The very obvious part is the so that's your driving force for the entire track. That's before the drums come in, that's before the percussion comes in. Here's what we want you to focus on. It sets a rhythm. And then you've got like your, again, sort of string parts going yeah over it. And then you just heard the ba 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 ba, which is essentially the main melody. It's quite quiet. Change the chord on the strings. Drums, like nice fill there. I love this build at the beginning, and then we get into the drums. But nothing else changes, really. It's like a xylophone-y sort of sounding thing. And we finally get a change on that bottom part. So that is the same until you finally get that change in chord, which is then go, and that's works really well. But you've got like that xylophone-y sounding thing going, and it's almost like a passing instrument for that change of chord before the melody kicks in. So we just go back a little bit. So 20 seconds, so the next 10 seconds, primarily the drums, and a little bit of that melody, then comes in the xylophone-y sounding thing. And then you have your chord change on the bass part. Love that stop into that string section, and then it goes into the main melody. We get another change again. What I love about this track is it's such a different vibe to so much of the music in the game. Like, I've heard a ton of remixes of the tracks where it goes very electronic, very heavy, but there's a bounciness of this track that never stops, and I think it's to do with a sort of sound going on. And it just keeps layers get added on top of that. Then you get the drums in part of it on top of it. So you've now got a poof, bah, poof, like sort of thing going on with that bass part, and then that xylophone thing going the da 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 dun dun da 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 dun dun. There's a lot of motion in the music. There's not a lot of standing still, and it's not very necessarily straightforward because it's very, especially with the xylophone part, it's very jumpy. It's like da 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 dun dun da 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 dun dun. I don't know if it's in triplets or not, but it's got that kind of like up down motion. Same with the bass, and obviously the drums kind of hold it together. But the melody itself is is playing its own thing. It's doing its own thing, going do 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 do. So if we just take it back, so when you listen to when that melody comes in. So the melody's doing its own thing compared to the rest of the track. And there's like a bounciness to it. And it's the way the drums fulfill on top of the bass. And the melody's not really in your face on this, and then we get a change. And like, it's beautiful. It's such a, for a track that is based on an industrial level, and you only hear this track twice in the entire game, I believe. It's utterly wasted, the fact that it's only used twice, but it's that build, that industrial sort of sounding, which is clearly what's going with the visuals, and then that break into this da 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 da, and then you get that ba 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 ba. It's like, oh god, it's so dreamy. I love it. Strings, it's like that swellingness to them. Like, bass comes back in, and then we get like almost like a scream of a guitar. It's just that this track is just phenomenal. Like, honestly, just one of the best pieces in the game. Like I said, it only plays twice, so you don't hear it that much, but when you break it down and when you're playing Blackout Basement and Oil Drum Alley, like, this is just perfect. Like, it's just incredible. This is why I love David Wise, right? David Wise did a fucking phenomenal job with these soundtracks of these games, using a lot of those string swells. Obviously it's all MIDI or software instruments. It's just like a bounciness to it just works so well with what's going on, and then obviously it breaks down into that lovely sort of. Oh, that repeats then, doesn't it? I just find Fear Factory to be a mind-blowing track. I think it has all the elements of a great piece of music, just because of like, it's just different to a lot of the rest of the music in the game. I love it. So we're going to finish off with Ice Cave Chant, which I believe is done by Evelyn Fisher. I could be wrong. It might be Robin Beanland. One of the other composers did Ice Cave Chant. But Ice Cave Chant, again, very, very beautiful piece of music. Has a wonderful melody, has a lovely build-up. It's only used once in the entire game. Again, wasted that it's only used once in the entire game, but... the ice, the gleamingness of the, like, that ding, ding. And then we get that lovely sort of plucked guitar, like what would be an acoustic guitar or a harp or something. Setting the tone. Right, this is one of the most jolly tracks in the game. I just want to play that beginning bit again because I think the build up is awesome. So you just get like that kind of the gleam of the crystals, the ice and stuff in the cave. That's what this is based on, right? This entire level is an ice cave, hence the Ice Cave Chant. But that, like, there's a playfulness to the music. It's like building, always very fantastical. But we get this beautifully happy melody come in. It's so jolly. And it's got that movement again. There's so much going on here. So you've got the main melody going, like, and then you've got that plucking, like, still underneath. So that's moving along. We've got the bass playing a few notes, is also helping keep that movement in the track. And then you've also got, like, one other thing going on behind it. Might be that extra plucks. Oh, it's a dunk 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 dunk. Sort of what would probably be a piano. So, as the track's gotten to this point, it's built up from very joyful, playful, and now we've got that kind of excitement. And there's so much going on. Hammering those chords down, I quite like that. And then we get this weird... That change of this awfully jolly melody, that la 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 la, so suddenly this like very danger, very much like Life in the Mines. We've now got a bit of a switch where we have this very... There's a challenge, very dangerous, like, ooh, something's uncertain here, change to it. I love that switch. It's so natural. All good, and then... It's like almost a feeling of paranoia. I kind of like it. And then you get that section, right? And then straight back in that, and that just brings it right back to this jolly little jaunt that it's got. This is that, just that, and then it'll back off when we're having a great old time. Oh, it's just hard not to smile listening to this. Bum, 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 bum. I love how it almost sounds like it's going to go back into the sort of, ooh, there's a bit of uncertainty, but it kind of resolves that chord. So what I mean by that is if you listen to stay in there, then go dun 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 dun. Just play that one more time without me talking over it, but just listen to how it goes down to that same chord of like, ooh, there's a little bit of uncertainty, and it goes dun 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 dun, and then we're good again. And this is where it would change to the other bit. Bum, 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 bum. Ready? Bum 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 bum. and it just keeps rolling along. The melody just, oh, it's so good. There's the uncertainty of it again, but I love that switcheroo of like, oh, we're going in that way. Oh no, we're going to resolve now this chord, so we're back to doing it again. And we're back to the main melody. I just, there's a level of creativity with the entirety of the soundtrack for Donkey Kong Country. Whether that's, you know, the jungle swing kind of music or aquatic ambience, which is all mostly these crazy strings and stuff. Like, when you actually look at this soundtrack and look at what they were able to do at the time, it is kind of insane. And obviously they carried that on with the other games. But I honestly really just appreciate the fact that there is a lot of variance in this first soundtrack. You know, Ice Cave Chant has a lot of jolliness to it. There is that level of like, I kind of like in this music where you get that, here's this happy-go-lucky kind of sound, similar to Life in the Mines. This is quite a positive, you know, overcoming a challenge, but there's this level of uncertainty, and both Ice Cave Chant and Life in the Mines have a similar structure like that. Whereas Fear Factory is just that piece of music is just constantly in motion. From the very get-go, that and then the drums, and then the way the melody works, and the way that things cross over, and the xylophone, and all these different things. And that's just 3 tracks that I think that don't always get the love and respect that they should do, because of things like aquatic ambience and the jungle track. Like, they are top tier, like S tier kind of music. The entirety of the soundtrack pretty much is. Gangplank Galleon's another one. You know, then there's also Northern Hemisphere, that's a really good piece of music. There's also Treetop Towns music. I'm not sure what that one's actually called. There's like the Vulture Culture one as well. So there's such a mix and variance of all these different tracks. Like I said, I've just picked 3 that I think should get more love, and they do in their own right. But I don't know if everyone is as high on them as some of the other tracks. But I just want to... I love this soundtrack entirely. If you've never listened to Donkey Kong Country, go and listen to it. I'll do a follow-up to this for Donkey Kong Country 2, possibly Donkey Kong Country 3, so you guys can just hear how insane these soundtracks are. But like I said, I'm pretty sure this Ice Cave Chant was done by Evelyn Fisher, and I know Robin Beanland did... I think it was Robin Beanland did one other track, and then David Wise did most of it. But the combined of those composers, they did a wonderful job with this soundtrack, and it's by far like one of the best ever made. But that is going to do it for me today then, guys. Thank you very much for watching, as always. If you like this video, hit like. If you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button. And links for Facebook and Twitter will be down below. I'll also stick some links to each of the composers, so you can listen to more of their works down there as well. And until next video, I will see you then.